So here are my thoughts and review on She-Hulk episode 7. Alright, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. You know, if you've watched all my other reviews for this show, for each episode that I've been reviewing, I have loved the show overall. Last week's episode was kind of a letdown for me. And I gotta say, this episode was semi of a letdown for me. Like, I loved the whole, group therapy session, the whole monologue with She-Hulk and Jennifer Walters, this whole idea of her using She-Hulk as a shield to protect Jennifer Walters, which goes to my whole theory or idea that Phase 4 is really our heroes trying to deal with trauma or dealing with their own mental insecurities or mental whatever abuse or whatever, just hard lifestyles that they deal with it their own way. And that's something they kind of go into with this episode a little bit. Now, I know a lot of people have been waiting for the Daredevil cameo, people that are against, people that have been wanting that, and that whole debate. But my thing is, and I know it's kind of me, here I am wearing those glasses, but just hear me out. When they did the whole mid-season trailer thing, I was like, all right, they're probably going to show him at like an episode 8 or 9, like the last 2 episodes, which seems to be correct in my theory. But, I think when it comes to Daredevil, and I think I wanted to say this before, but like, Daredevil, the thing I say that the reason why Daredevil's cameo is more important than all the other cameos that showed up in the show, even Hulk, is because Daredevil, Matthew Murdock, has had his lore and She-Hulk's lore always blended together nicely, like PB and J in the comics a lot. Even a Daredevil and Hulk lore, like that also merged a lot, along with Spider-Man. Let's not forget, before Iron Man, before the MCU, the main big people that were running Marvel were Hulk, Daredevil, Spider-Man, maybe the X-Men. I mean, you literally had Man-Bull in this episode. Literally one of the first Daredevil villains in Daredevil comics. Like, don't tell me they're not sprinkling it in here and there. But that's, this is not Daredevil show. This is She-Hulk show, and I love the show so far. But this episode, I felt like, honestly, here's my opinion about this whole show so far. I think the show would have benefited more if it was like a 6-episode arc or a movie. Kind of like what they're about to do with Armor Wars. Instead of it being a series, it's going to be a movie. I feel like She-Hulk could have benefited more as a movie than a series. And I kind of wish we got more of the lawyer stuff for Jennifer Walters She-Hulk, but it is what it is. We didn't get the same thing for Daredevil either. I give this episode a 5.8 out of 10. Tell me what you think, cinema fans. I'm not going to say I told y'all so, but I definitely told y'all so. Spoilers ahead. So I want to make myself very clear. I wasn't part of the whole train of like saying that, oh, I was only looking for Daredevil to show up in She-Hulk. I wasn't part of that train. I actually loved She-Hulk for the most part, except for the last 2 episodes. Not this episode, but the last before episodes were kind of lackluster for me. But besides all that, for months, when Charlie Cox showed up in No Way Home, and then Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin showed up in Hawkeye, this whole debate of if this is the same Daredevil from the Netflix show, is the Netflix show's canon? Well, today we get our first confirmation, if anything, that those shows were canon, or at least the Daredevil show is canon. Because the first time we see Charlie Cox show up in the courtroom, they played just a subtle hint of the theme song to the Daredevil show. But soon as She-Hulk and Daredevil have their little spout, and they actually have a conversation, and he says, "I am Daredevil," explaining, and then she's trying to, make fun of his suit and all. While he is saying, "I am Daredevil," they play the actual theme from the show, which has been goes to my theory I had earlier when they showed a clip of today's episode where he jumped on the car and they played a little hint of the Daredevil score from the show, which goes to my, backs up my claim. So I'm just want to say, I told you so, I told you so, and I told y'all so. To every single person that's been delusional and telling me that those shows, or at least Daredevil show from the Netflix series, is not canon, How do y'all feel right now? Y'all being very quiet right now, by the way. Y'all being very, very, very quiet about this. Y'all are like making fun of the Daredevil fanboys that were hating on She-Hulk. Y'all redirecting it towards that. You're trying to change the subject because a lot of you big TikTokers were like, oh, the Daredevil Netflix series is not canon. Well, look, now, there you go. There you go. Y'all thought I forgot? Y'all thought I forgot. Overall, I really loved this episode. Actually, it's probably one of my favorite episodes, next to the first episode of the show. I know that's a very broad and basic answer because there's a lot to go into this episode, so I might do a part 2 for the first time ever. But doing a part 2 to this review, but overall, I really enjoyed this episode. It was fun. It was action-packed. It was amazing. The hallway scene for Daredevil, chef's kiss. But I also love She-Hulk in this episode as well. 8.8 out of 10 for me. Comment your thoughts. Cinema fans. Okay, so besides Daredevil, I really want to talk about the rest of this episode. So Frogman, aka Lee Frog, I actually did enjoy him pretty well in this episode. I think he, in a way, executed the parodiness of this character and the superhero of this character or villain. He's either a villain or a hero. It depends on whatever the story is in the comics. I know him and Daredevil have had run-ins before, which is kind of similar to what this episode was about, but nowhere close to the comics though, the comic run, or not comic run, but the comic story, the one issue. But I actually did enjoy Jennifer Walters, and I've been enjoying Jennifer Walters in all the episodes, even the last 2 episodes before this episode, which I didn't really care for as much, but I did enjoy her, performance and how she executed the character of Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk. Even I feel like the writing can lose itself sometimes because I feel like it doesn't trust. I feel like the first time in this episode they started to trust She-Hulk, like it showed the what it meant to be a She-Hulk, and really at the end of the episode where I can't remember the name, the group's name right now, top of my head. I'm sorry, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm recording this, but basically when they show on the big screen at the Galaga, making fun of She-Hulk, calling her a slut and everything, which I hope she whoops whoever said that ass, but I feel like that was the first time we got to see some sort of character, not development, but character trials and tribulations, kind of like, showing her struggle a little bit. There's struggles throughout that whole show with her trying to find love or a relationship, or having a relationship without having to be a She-Hulk, and it can be both Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk. But I felt like this episode really executed that in a way to show, okay, this is game time now. Like, we're going to see some actual She-Hulk action, and we got to see that a lot in this episode, which I loved a lot. The chemistry between Daredevil and She-Hulk is freaking phenomenal. Jennifer Walters and Charlie Cox. Hopefully we get more of them in the future. I think the writing was on point. I think the action was on point. The character development for both the characters were on point. The comedy was actually on point this time for me. And overall, I really did enjoy this episode. And no, it wasn't because Daredevil showed up. I've been enjoying the show overall, but this episode was my favorite. 8.8 out of 10 for me.